A lot of families yesterday at Christmas dinner.
Yep.
They're talking about the impeachment.
Yep.
We have you here now, finally.
We didn't at our family.
You did. You got one day off.
That's right.
I guess what's the word on the impeachment as the articles are still being held in the House? I guess as the senators, it's a waiting game?
Yeah, well, for anybody who hasn't figured this out yet, this is all politics. You're getting straight party line votes on this. The final outcome in the Senate is a foregone conclusion. So I think people have tuned out and moved on. And listen, this is serious. This is a constitutional tool that the founding fathers put in the Constitution in case of an emergency. So when it's invoked, I think people need to take it seriously, somberly. We'll do that. We'll listen to the evidence and then do the right thing. But gruel's pretty thin right now that they're trying to serve up.
Do you have any indication on why Nancy Pelosi is yet to hand over the articles to the Senate? Because she physically has to go deliver them, correct?
You know that the lawyers are arguing about that. I don't know exactly how that comes out. It doesn't make a lot of difference, really. Again, whatever happens, you know he's not going to be convicted. I mean, it's just simply not going to happen. So first of all, I don't think Nancy really wanted to do this anyway. She's been around a long time. She's not running the House of Representatives, being run by the squad. She held off as long as she could, but finally had to cave in and did what she had to do. I think she'd love dearly to find an exit ramp. Certainly the polling and the anecdotal things you hear about it. It hasn't played well for him, and the longer this goes on, probably the worse it gets, pretty much like happened to the Republicans in the Clinton years.
It seems like the exit plan would be to hand it over and just get everything rolling. The Senate can do what they're going to do, and as most people assume, the president will still be the president. It's being classified by some that they're looking for new articles to come up with. They're looking for new evidence. Do you think they're trying to find a third article before they hand it over? Probably
a lot of different people doing a lot of different things. I can't imagine they'd start another impeachment proceedings. I mean, the American public, I think, are fed up with this as it is. I don't think that plays. I really don't. What she's going to do with this, I've served, almost 30 years in our state Senate, and I led it for a couple of decades. Now I've served a decade back there. There aren't a lot of things that are absolutely written in stone, but I can tell you this written in stone. When one house tries to dictate to the other house and tell them how to do their business, it doesn't work. And regardless of the issue, regardless of who it is, Republicans, Democrats, or what have you, the Founding Fathers purposely gave two houses to the legislative body, and they intended them to run independently, and that's what happens generally.
It seems now that Nancy Pelosi is haggling with Mitch McConnell as well as Chuck Schumer about what the trial in the Senate's supposed to look like. Do you have any indication if they're making any progress or if we're kind of in a holding pattern?
Well, I don't know about making any progress. They talk from time to time. I can tell you with absolute certainty, there's no way that Nancy Pelosi is going to tell Mitch McConnell what to do in the Senate. It just isn't going to happen. First time Mitch told us about this, he says, "Let me tell you what's going on." She's trying to get her way by threatening to send us something we don't want. So, I don't know how that's going to work, but we're going to do what the Senate wants to do, and without reference to the House.
Big conversation piece is over Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski. The Republican senator is saying that she was disturbed by some of the comments that Mitch McConnell had made, basically saying that he had made up his mind. Do you think there's a problem with, I guess, the way McConnell conducted himself, saying that maybe he won't be an impartial juror?
Well, look, we're all human beings, and this is a trial of sorts. We sit as a jury of sorts, but we're not bound by the same things that you get ordinarily in a jury trial. So people come at it from a different point of view. Look, everybody wants to do the right thing here, and having said that, it is a political exercise. And I suspect that's going to play into this as we go along.
And Mitch McConnell appropriately said on Fox that, there are Democrats that are in the Senate that he doesn't believe are impartial either. Do you think that's a fair characterization?
Well, I don't know. I've heard some of the presidential candidates saying what they were going to do. So Look, again, everybody comes at this from a different standpoint. Each of us are responsible to the people that elected us, and we want to do the right thing.
Do you think that the comparisons between the Clinton impeachment and what should be done with the Trump impeachment are fair? Do you think these two cases are really something that should be compared to each other? Or do you think this time in 2019 with President Trump, you can't really look at the past, you kind of just have to figure out what's appropriate now?
Well, the facts are different. They always are in these kind of situations. But having said that, the process is remarkably similar. Indeed, the basic process is supplied by the Constitution, regardless of what the facts are. So, there are people that will draw comparisons when it suits them. I'm amused at Chuck Schumer talking about wanting witnesses when they got that videotape of him from the Clinton impeachment saying, look, we don't want any witness, we don't need any witnesses, there shouldn't be witnesses in impeachment. Now he's pounding the table saying he wants them. In addition to that, he says, well, Mitch McConnell has said that he's working with the White House on this. That's terrible. They got a video of him saying that he was working with the Clinton White House at the time. So, you just got to take it a step at a time. We got a lot of work to do back there. I'm really disappointed in the amount of time that this has taken already. I was involved in a couple of impeachments previously, not presidential, but U.S. District Judge impeachments. They didn't take anywhere near this amount of time. They were handled in a much different fashion, but they weren't political. It's unfortunate that you do have the politics here, but it's here, and you have to deal with it. And like I said, we'll get through it.
There's a lot of Republicans in Congress that are concerned that the bar has now been lowered for impeachment. Do you think it has been?
Yeah, I think that's a legitimate concern. I think after what happened to the Republicans when they impeached Clinton, you'd think that the body would have learned its lesson. The Republicans got their head handed to them in the next election. I think there's a tremendous hate and vitriol and animosity against this president. And I think that's clouding the judgment of some people. I think they really believe everybody feels like they do about him. Certainly there are people that do, but there are people that aren't. I think one of the things that concerns me is that if indeed we go through the impeachment and then he goes to re-election and he gets beat, in the future, I think you get when a House of Representatives is of the opposite party of the president, they're going to be licking their chops during the first term of that president because they believe that it will bode well for them in the next election. So I think that's a danger here. I really do. It'll be tempting if that's a scenario that plays out, but there's a lot of things concerning here.
The trial in the Senate, it's wait and see, but already Democrats are saying that if there's no evidence, there's no witnesses, if it doesn't kind of line up to what a criminal trial would look like, that many will call it a sham trial. Yeah. Do you think this is already being set up as a sham?
Well, I think in a trial, and I've tried lots and lots of cases, you get a plaintiff and their attorneys come in, and the defense and their attorneys come in, and the jury sits and listens. And what the House is trying, the House went through the impeachment proceeding in the House, and they went through the process of calling witnesses, of taking depositions, of looking at lots and lots of documents. So that you then have the House managers who act as the prosecuting attorney. They gather everything up and bring it to the Senate. It's not up to the Senate to make their case for them. It's up to them to make the case. They've had every opportunity to go get witnesses, and they said this was so urgent that the president was a threat to national security. They felt that they just had to move it along as quickly as they did. Well, as a result of that, they left some witnesses they wanted to talk to on the table. That's not our fault. I mean, that's the prosecutor's fault. That's the House of Representatives and its managers. They're the ones that need to bring the evidence over to the Senate, present it to us, and then we'll make a decision.
Some Democrats are saying that if former White House counsel Don McGahn were to testify or be allowed to testify, it would blow this whole thing wide open. It would make the biggest difference. Some Republicans are saying it won't make a difference, and at this point, adding more and more evidence is kind of just complicating things. Do you think Don McGahn really is the piece that the Democrats needed?
Oh, I doubt it. Look, they've had the opportunity to go in and interview these people, to interview people around them, to look at all the documents that they can get their hands on. Anybody can say anything, but that doesn't make it true. I doubt one witness in this is going to make it. There are very few trials where a witness turns the whole thing. There's a lot of inertia on each side of this. I don't think one witness is going to turn this trial, whoever it might be.
Is there someone that you're interested anywhere in the world to come into the Senate and talk about this to you?
Well, look, I have an advantage. I sit on the Intelligence Committee as well as on the Foreign Relations Committee, so I have access to a lot of things that some people don't. I also know a lot of the people personally that are involved in this, and so I'm able to go out and gather what kind of information I need to make a decision. But look, I want to listen to what the House has to present. I want to listen to the arguments, and then I'll make a decision and vote as I'll have to do.
Your colleague in the House of Representatives, Russ Fulcher, said that there's no reason to rush through a trial. Everything should be done correctly. There's no reason to make it look like the Republicans are trying to run through a trial. He's in the House. He doesn't get to make that decision. But do you agree with Representative Fulcher?
Well, I agree with him that like I said, this is a somber proceeding. This is something that the Founding Fathers gave us as a huge weapon, and it should be taken seriously, and it should be taken somberly. I think we need to go through a procedure that allows people to argue and make their cases, to present whatever evidence the House thinks that they can present. I think we need to go through all that and then make a decision. But I don't think it should be a rush. There were people who said, well, as soon as it comes over, we ought to make a motion to dismiss because the gruel is so thin, and take it off the table. And I think the Clinton proceeding was I think a good template to use. What they did is they opened it up and had arguments, and then made decisions as they went along as to what they needed to make a decision. And every member's going to be different, whether they're ready to make a decision or not. But the proceedings at least got to open up and at least have arguments before you want to make a decision.
United States Senate, 53 Republicans, 45 Democrats, 2 independents. As everything stands right now, it's a foregone conclusion, as you've mentioned. The president will still be the president after the Senate trial. Some are saying that it's irresponsible for the United States Congress to spend as much time as they have on impeachment, and they should be concentrating on other issues that are important to Americans. What else is being accomplished right now in Congress? Not specifically right now, the day after Christmas, but as you've reported, as your press office has reported, there is business still being done.
There is.
What's your assurance to Idahoans that things are not being pushed aside?
Well, we're doing the best we can in that regard, but there is there's no doubt that the impeachment thing is sucking a lot of the air, oxygen out of the air. Look, USMCA needed to be done badly. It should have been done a long time ago, but we're going to get to that as quickly as impeachment's over. We will vote on that. And I think it'll get an affirmative vote in the Senate. Should have been done a long time ago. We're holding hearings on legislation. We're moving legislation on the Foreign Relations Committee, but again, it's not getting the attention on the floor like I'd like to see it. So it's a distraction. There is no argument about that. But we did get the budget done, the budgeting done, the appropriations done. It needed to be done. We got that done before Christmas. So heavy lift. You spend a lot of hours, but. Look, you play the cards that they deal you, and you do the best you can.
To bookend our conversation on impeachment, have you made up your mind on how you want to vote on the removal of the president when eventually it does get to the Senate?
Well, look, I'm going to keep an open mind. When you're sitting in a position that I sit in, just as any juror, and I've talked to a lot of jurors after trials, they're told by the judge to not make up their mind till the end of it, but they start leaning one way or the other as if somebody comes in and says, "Look, I saw this man shoot this man," and they're not supposed to make up their mind, but they heard that, and so to be fair, I want to let the House come over and argue this. And then I'll vote. I'll cast Idaho's vote, and I'll do it with a good conscience.
A lot of conversation this week about a promise from North Korea, a Christmas surprise. When you first saw that, what were your impressions?
Well, look, I think you got to go way back on this. You know, we're in my dealings with these things, in watching it, we're on the third dictator there, Kim Jong-un. And I've watched him, I've watched his father, I watched his grandfather. And the situation got very dangerous as time went on, to the point where when we got to January of 2017, things were in a pretty difficult straits. And we were headed to a very bad place. Each of the sides were hurling insults back and forth at each other. I was glad the president got involved. A lot of people said, oh, the president shouldn't be talking to him directly, et cetera, et cetera. Look, as you know, I know the president, and I couldn't see that any harm could come of it. The situation couldn't be any worse than it was. And he pulled us back from the edge of what I think was a very dark place that we were headed to. I really feel at this point that certainly the negotiations have slowed down. I personally know the people that are involved in those negotiations, and I've talked to them, mostly on a classified basis. I think we need to be patient in this. Kim Jong-un is not his father. He's not his grandfather. I couldn't help be encouraged when he said that he wanted to negotiate to a point where you had a nuclear-free Korean peninsula. Look, that's what we want. If he says that's what he wants, my experience on these things is you can get to a point if you have two parties that have two things. Number one, a common objective, and number two, if they're willing to act in good faith to get there. The Iranian deal was a very much different thing than that. We had neither of those with the parties involved. And as a result of that, we got to not a better place. I thought a worse place. And of course, the deal has been vitiated now. But I think that we need to give this time to work. This wasn't put in place overnight. It wasn't put in place in a year or 2 years or 3 years. It was put in place over generations. And the parties need to continue to talk. They are continuing to talk. And I want to encourage them to get us to a good place.
Let's talk about the last decade a little bit. We'll do some comparisons. We'll talk about the last 10 years. In 2009, you started as a freshman in the United States Congress. Since that point, how much do you think the country has changed?
Well, the country has changed to a large degree. I look at the way things were when I was a child compared to the way they are now. There are dramatic increases. I saw when I took office, Barack Obama took office 20 days later, and we went through 8 years of the Obama years. One of the things that is important to me, and I think important to most people that serve up there, is the economy. I mean, we struggled through those 8 years of Barack Obama. What most people don't think about today, the media won't, national media won't report this, but we're about to finish the best year we've had in 50 years economically. By the way, China's about to finish their worst year in 30 years. But with unemployment where it is, with consumer spending where it is, where consumer optimism is, with wage growth at every level, top level, middle level, even at the lower level, which is actually growing on a percentage basis faster than anywhere else, we're living at a utopian time in America. Now, you'd never know this listening to the reporting that's done on the national basis. That's probably the biggest change I've seen over the decade, is going from the real downward steps we took in the Obama years and look, this isn't something you need to argue about. All you got to do is, the numbers don't lie. All you got to do is go out and pull the graphs and the bar charts and what have you that started on Election Day in 2016, and look what's happened to the stock market. Look what's happened to unemployment. Look what's happened to wage growth. I mean, it's staggering. We in politics always know that if it's bad, the party in power is going to get their head handed to them. Remember the old saying, it's the economy, stupid. But that door, does it swing both ways? It certainly swings much more against the party in power when things are bad. When things are good, I don't think it swings as much in favor of the party that's in power, because it's kind of like the lights in the morning. You get up every morning, you turn the switch, lights go on, you don't even give it a thought. But the day you turn the switch and nothing happens, it's a big deal. And that's what happens when the economy's bad. The economy now is really, really good.
You touched on it, but the national media, it seems like every time they get an opportunity, they make it seem like Republicans and Democrats in D.C., they hate each other and they can't get along, and you guys hate each other personally.
Yeah.
We know that's not true.
Yeah.
But over the last 10 years, how have you seen the coverage of national issues change? Is it worse today than it was 10 years ago?
No question about it. But let's unpack that a step at a time. You're absolutely right. I mean, we get along incredibly well. I mean, there's 100 of us. Vicki and I had dinner with Bernie Sanders and his wife at a Senate event a year before he ran, and had an interesting evening. We didn't talk about healthcare. We didn't talk about politics. We talked about what human beings talk about, and that's the way it is. I mean, we get along personally very well. We're very much at odds because of the polarity in the country today, but we represent the people that sent us there. The national media today, TDS is a real disease in America, Trump derangement syndrome. I know people that are good, reasonable, ordinary people till you start talking about Donald Trump back there, and they have no ability to control the emotion. And these are people that for a long time told me that, look, we're all different. We need to tolerate each other. Everyone's welcome here. Boy, they're not singing that tune today. And look, there's no doubt that Donald Trump's different than any president that we've had. He does things differently. I've been around a number of presidents to a greater or lesser degree. This president, obviously, more so than others. He does do decision making differently. But if you think Americans are spun up about this, I meet regularly with people from other countries. My favorite are the Europeans. They are just distraught over Donald Trump. And I say, look, we've been through a revolution. We've been through a civil war. We've been through 2 world wars. We've been through a depression. We've been through all kinds of stuff. And we're still standing. Please, don't judge us by a single person. The strength of America does not lie in the President of the United States. The strength of America lies in the American people. And at the end of the day, this is going to be just fine.
Pretty early on in the Trump presidency, the conversation was about doing it Trump's way or doing it the Trump way. He's been called unpresidential, he's been called unique, whatever you want to call it. He has a very unique way, a very special way of doing presidential business. And you've had a front row seat. Is it working? Is Donald Trump's way getting things done in Washington?
Well, I guess what voters almost always judge a president by is the economic conditions that he's given them. And I don't think you can argue. There isn't an argument that things aren't as good as they've been in a half a century. So in that regard, yes. Does he rub people the wrong way? He rubs a lot of people the wrong way. His way of doing business is unique. His way of sitting and talking, you can have a very normal, ordinary conversation with this guy. People say to me, wow, gosh, if you're a friend of Donald Trump, you must agree with him all the time. No, I really don't. We have very spirited conversations on some issues like trade and things like that where we have very different views. But look, I don't go out and criticize him. I don't go out and talk about it publicly. You can disagree with him face to face, and he's fine with that. He will disagree with you, and at the end of the day, he's still the president, you are not. But he doesn't. He enjoys a spirited conversation. He really enjoys a spirited conversation. But if you take it public, it's a problem. And I haven't done that. I enjoy a good relationship with him, and as a result of that, I have some influence. I have some influence in what happens in the White House. So. I want to keep it that way. I think it's good for Idahoans. I think it's good for me trying to get things done the way I like to get them done, or things I want to get done. So, but he is different. I'll give you that. And if you can't look past that, if you have trouble with the personality, it is what it is. And if he were sitting here, he'd say, look, this is who they elected. This is who they're going to get.
President Trump ever remind you of any other people you've worked with over the years, or is he just so unique he's his own animal?
What he reminds me from time to time is that I was a Rubio guy in the primary, so he never misses a chance at that. But look, he is different. I mean, his decision making is different. The thing I like about it is I can have a conversation. He doesn't act like he is the president of the United States and like he knows more than you. And I mean, he will engage with you and have a conversation. At the end of the day, he is, when I've disagreed with him, he has never ever treated me with anything but the greatest respect. Now I'm sure that would change dramatically if I went out on TV and tried to take it on like that. But you have to deal with it as it is.
In 2009, when you began in Congress, Senator Mike Crapo said that you were a results-oriented person. 10 years later, what results are you proud of?
Well, I think that probably the proudest I am of what we've been able to do for Idaho people. Mike Crapo and I vote together. We're like brothers, closer than any delegation up there. We cast the same vote 99.99% of the time. When we're doing things like getting a federal judge appointed, when we're doing things like dealing with land use issues, when we're doing things like public lands issues, we've accomplished much. In addition to that, on the international stage, Mike's now chairman of the Banking Committee. I'm chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. We're able to do some pretty significant things for the country and for Idahoans. Idahoans are part of the country. One of the things that I'm looking forward to is we're in the process of renegotiating the Columbia River Treaty with Canada, and as chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, that treaty goes nowhere unless I put it on the table after it's done, after it's negotiated. So I'm heavily involved in that, in the negotiations. There's nothing more important. I shouldn't say nothing. There's not many things more important to Idahoans than our water. The Columbia River Treaty is not going to do what all these kinds of things try to do, and that is take our water, get control over our water. It's going to be as good, but probably better for Idahoans than the treaty that we've had.
What Idaho issues or Northwest issues do you think will be front and center for the next decade?
Well, I think the Columbia River Treaty obviously is going to be one of them. One of the things that's also important is I think Idahoans have a tendency to look past how important the Idaho National Laboratory is. This was a birthplace of civilian nuclear power. We're in the process right now of developing the next generation of nuclear reactors, what's called the SMR, the small modular reactor. They're even moving to the microreactor now. These are going to change the way electricity is generated all over the globe for generations to come, and that's going on right now. One thing most people don't know, and I actually can't talk a lot about it, but the Idaho National Laboratory is becoming for cybersecurity what it already is for nuclear power. And of course, being the birthplace of nuclear power and having developed about 52 different kinds of nuclear generating facilities there, it carries the flag. Same thing's happening with cybersecurity for a lot of reasons. Number one, it's uniquely suited because it over its history has developed control systems. That's the heart of nuclear power. It's the heart of a lot of things, but it's also very much the heart of the way cybersecurity is used around the world. We've developed a way of responding to attacks there at the lab. That's continuing. The funding is increasing dramatically on cybersecurity at the lab. I foresee a day when the lab will be spending as much money on cybersecurity as it is on nuclear power over there.
It's been said by tech experts over the last decades that the future wars will not be fought on a battlefield. They'll be fought online. They'll be fought on infrastructure.
That's really true, and it's true already. Before the Russians invaded Georgia, they shut down the electric grid using cyber attacks. They've done it to the Ukraine. They did it in Estonia. We've seen other examples I can't talk about here, but you're right. I mean, there's no doubt that if it's a kinetic war, the first wave will not be kinetic weapons. It will be cyber weapons. There may even be wars fought where there are no kinetic weapons and there'll only be cyber weapons. It's a new day out there. It really is.
When you reflect back on the last decade as we head into 2020, is there a moment for you that floats to the top as something that you're most proud of in the Senate, your favorite moment from being a United States Senator?
Well, look, representing people of Idaho in the United States Senate has been one of the greatest honors of my life. There isn't one thing I can say that is important, because every time I walk over there, and it takes, it's about a 3-minute walk, 4-minute walk from my office to the floor. I know what I'm going over there to vote on, and the thought that goes through my mind over there: how's this going to affect Idaho? How is this going to affect ordinary Idahoans? And I do that every time. Most of the time, you don't have to struggle with a lot. Like in my state career and this career, I've cast 25,000 votes probably in committees and on the floor, so that becomes kind of second nature. But I do that every time, and it's an important thing to do.
As we head into 2020, outside of impeachment, outside of the big issues, what bill or what legislation are you most excited about? Maybe something that's more in infant stages at this point.
Well, there are a number of things going on. Again, I go back to the Columbia River Treaty. Being a big water issue for Idaho. That's certainly something I'm going to keep my fingers on 24/7. As we go forward. The world changes so quickly and so dramatically. I've seen changes. I mean, today, one of the great there's a couple of underreported stories out there. Number one is how bad the economy is within Iran. But one of the other unreported stories out there is how dramatically things have changed between Israel and the Arab world. 10 years ago, to say that there would have been a warming relationship between the Arab world and Israel, people would have locked you up. Today that's happening, and it's happening all the time. It's the result of the situation with Iran. Iran is a bad actor. They can't leave alone the malign things that they do, whether it's interfering in their neighbors' businesses, whether it's manufacturing roadside devices that take off the legs and arms of American service men and women, whether it's the suppression of their own people. They just can't leave things alone, and as a result of that, everywhere they are, they stir the pot. And the civilized world is learning this more and more every day, and I think that the relationship, there's actually a financial things going on between Arab countries and Israel, which was unheard of 10 years ago.
I'll meet Idahoans in the community, and they'll say, you know politics. What's going on? What's one thing that I need to know as an Idahoan? I'll let you answer that question.
One thing people need to know as an Idahoan is I get a chance to meet with people from all over the world. I traveled, not a lot, but I do travel to other countries, particularly third world countries. I was in Africa for a while in August. We live in the greatest country in the world. Politics or no politics, arguments or no politics. There's no place like this. Even countries that are supposed to be like us, that are democracies, there's no place like this. There's 200 countries in the world. They're all different. They all have their own issues. But there's 8 billion people on the planet. A huge percent of them want to live here. They'd like to change their own country, but they know that's not going to happen. They'd like to live here. This is the greatest country in the world. Every time I get off the airplane back into the country, from out of the country, I have that thought. But I have that thought also every week, because I come home every weekend. When I walk off the airplane in Boise, Idaho, or one of the other cities I'll travel to from D.C., it's a feeling that you can't replicate. There's no better country in the world. There's no better place than Idaho in the state in the United States.
Well, Senator Risch, that's a perfect way to finish the interview. Thank you so much for your time.
Good.
All right, boys. Thanks for your help in the back.